Today in this video, I am hosting Dr. Chibuzo. Is starting his residency training in Canada next month. And one of the reasons why I decided to have this session with him is because a lot of you guys have been asking me in the comment section that if I am saying, okay, the UK pathway is no longer working, what other pathway is available? And I know I keep telling you guys that there are some other pathways like US, Canada, but I know a lot of people don't have so much information about these various pathways, especially the Canada one. And that is why I decided to have this session so that um just to put you guys like just to have a session where somebody who has gone through the whole process, who understands the process, can actually tell us a little bit more about it. And so that if you also have any questions after this or any further clarifications, you can also ask me and I'll pass this across to Dr. Chibuzo. So I think we can just go ahead and I'm going to give him the opportunity to introduce himself. You guys already know me. My name is Blessing. And so on today's in today's session, we're going to be talking about what opportunities are available to IMG doctors in Canada. And so let's get right to it. Hello, Dr. Chibuzo. Thank you for agreeing to this session. And okay, I won't confess now. I'll confess later at the end. But thank you for really for agreeing to do this. Like I'm so grateful.
Yeah,
So could you please just introduce yourself to the family?
absolutely. Hello, everybody. My name is Chibuzo Okoronkwo. I am probably known as Dr. Chi, and I went to medical school in Ukraine. I finished in 2016, and when I was done, I went back to Nigeria to practice for about 3 years. I did my internship for 1 year, and I also did my um, return of service, which is NYSC. And I worked as an MO for about 3 years before coming down to Canada in 2022. And I've been in Canada for 3 years, and luckily I was able to, not luckily, through hard work, you know, able to match this year into family medicine residency at the University of Saskatchewan. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here. I want to commend Dr. Blessing for what she's doing. I think that this is a very commendable platform. You're doing your
Thank
residency
you.
right now, and you're
Mm.
still taking out time to, to do this. It sounds, it's very sacrificial, very selfless. So well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's actually a whole lot of work, but it's something I love to do, so why not? Okay, so I think I'm just going to go right into the session. Let's not waste so much time. So I think I want to start by asking Dr. Chibuzoda why Canada? Because there are so many other countries that you could have considered. The UK, as at the time you moved or you left Nigeria, the UK was still a viable option. The US, there's Australia, and okay, let's say those are like the popular places at that time. But why did you settle for Canada?
Absolutely. A lot of people ask me that question. And to be very honest, I considered about like three countries majorly. The only one I didn't consider was Australia. I didn't like the fact that they had a lot of reptiles and snakes there. So I didn't think about Australia. But the countries I really considered was the US, the UK, and Canada. And the first thing I did was to, have a rule out their pros and cons and see which one, suited my interest the most. And at that time, I was still very single, right? So, but I was dating and I was looking to start my own family. So, family wise, I was, really considering a country that would favor me in that regard. And so when I looked at the US, I looked at raising my kid in the US, and there was a lot of, news around that time. Because that was like 2019 about gun violence. There's just didn't seem safe, right? And also the immigration pathway in the US is a little dicey. So I didn't really want to go there. The pros, though, for the US is that it has great compensation for doctors, and it also has. I also know a lot of people that have matched into the US. A lot of great success stories. So it seemed as though the information was out there, but I just wasn't comfortable with raising my kid there. For the UK, consider the UK. The UK was, to its pros, it was one of the easiest pathways for doctors at that time. Was I saw a lot of my friends writing the exams and passing, and it seemed as though everybody was just moving there. It seemed as though the cons though outweigh the pros for me. The immigration pathway there is still very dicey. The compensation for doctors is not the best. And even now it's becoming very oversaturated because a lot of people now are there in the UK and they're not even able to get into GP training, right?
Mm.
So I found that it was already becoming, and it was seemed as well most of my friends there saw it as a transition ground to
Yeah.
still go to the US or Canada. So I was like, why would I want to still transition after wasting my time there? So let me just go to where I want to be. And so I thought about Canada, and Canada also has its cons. Like at that time, there were not a lot of information, right? It was very difficult to access information. I didn't know anybody that had any success story at that time, so it was very discouraging. But the pros for me was that it was family oriented, culture. The immigration system was pretty much straightforward. I could do the express entry, and after 3 years, coming as a PR, I can apply for my citizenship. And then it was just a great country to raise my kids. And compensation is great for doctors as well. So I was
Mm.
like, well, Canada, it seems to be ticking most of my boxes. I just need to go look for success stories to align with that. So that's why I chose Canada.
Yeah. I actually think that for Canada at that time, there wearing a lot of success stories.
Sure.
Anytime you hear Canada, they make Canada sound or look like, oh, it is that place that for you to enter Canada, like you're going to like die. It's like it's almost impossible for you to even enter Canada as an IMG. Because I
Yeah,
remember those were also the countries I considered at that time. But I know they will tell you, oh, you have to write a lot of exams. It is so the exams are so expensive, and there was just a lot of negative things that you're just like, okay, Canada is not for me. And so it's just easy to switch to UK, which seem to have like a more straightforward,
yeah,
path.
sure.
So
Understandably, yeah. Because at
yeah.
that time, initially, they had like multiple exams. They had like four different exams,
Mm,
that people had to take the MCCQE first, one out the QE1, then NACA Ski, then QE2. So it was actually a very stringent process initially. But Canada started cutting down a lot of their exams and cancelled some of their exams. And so as he said, I think it started getting easier, to
yeah.
get. So, yeah.
So I think Canada too is realizing that they need to be more IMG friendly.
Yeah,
So I
sure,
guess that's why they also had to make those changes.
sure.
Um anyway, I'm glad you actually chose Canada because now you're not going to face all the things that people are facing here in the
I
UK. Like,
heard.
no, it's not a good story, and I don't think I want to talk about it in this
Yeah, let's
video.
not change our mood.
Okay. So the next question is, did you start the process in Nigeria or did you have to move down to Canada to actually start?
Oh yeah, so I started my process with regards to process. So the process for me, even for residency, starts with your PR, right? So it's not just trying to write the exam; it's about having the right papers to even be able to practice after you've passed the exam. So that's the first thing to start. So I started my PR process in Nigeria for sure, and I had to go through the express entry pathway. If anybody knows about that,
Mm,
you can come here as a permanent resident through that pathway. There's also the provisional nomination. If you're not able to get an express entry, you can also come as and I think there's a healthcare pathway right now for healthcare
mm,
professionals. So that's what I did at that time. So I started after my NYC. And so
mm,
that delayed the process for a while because COVID came in and all those things. So I had to wait
mm,
for about 2 years before I got it. But in that period, that's where I started looking for resources for my QA1 because I knew that was what was next. And then it all boils down to not having enough information because at
mm,
that time they were not even writing the QA1 in Nigeria. You had to go to
mm,
Ghana to go write it. So if I had known, I would have written the exam. I would have gone to Ghana to go and write the exam. Because it just makes your life easier once you have written one
mm.
exam, especially the MCCQE one. Your opportunities, you have more plethora of opportunities to apply for jobs and work as a doctor when you land here.
Dr. Chibuzo, please.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and talk. I just want to quickly plug in my charger.
Okay. Yeah. So I would have started with that, but I didn't do that. So I was just gathering information, and the first group I connected with was the Nigerian Doctors Pathway. The Nigerian Doctors Pathway, they have resources and help, and they do classes for both the MCCQE one and for the NACOS key exam. So I started joining and listening in their MCCQE one classes just to be gathering information. So that's what I was doing in Nigeria. But actively started my preparation for the exams when I landed in Canada.
Mm.
Yeah, so
Okay, but um, but that means you don't necessarily have to move to Canada to actually start the process. You can
Yeah.
actually start from wherever you are in the world, right?
Yeah, right now. So right now, I usually encourage people to write the exam from Nigeria, especially the MCCQE one. Right now, you can write it from Nigeria. You can also go to Ghana to write it. It's just that you have to make sure you have stable internet, or make sure you go to a center if there's any centers, because you don't want your internet messing you up during your exam. So
I think that one is a general advice anywhere in the
yeah,
world. Even
very
in the UK, I don't advise you to write your exam in your house.
yeah.
Anything
Even
can
Canada, yeah,
happen.
people
You
don't.
get, so just find a center and go there,
Yeah,
and for everybody's safety and peace of mind, just find a center and
right.
go there.
Yeah,
I'm actually very happy because the fact that I think that's also one thing about USMLE that discourage people, the fact that you have to travel all the way to Ghana to go and write it. I mean, as a Nigerian, and I'm not sure about some other locations in Africa anyway, but I'm sure there'll be some other locations. But I know that that was like a major discouraging factor for
yeah,
Nigerians. But I'm really glad that there's MCQ, that you can write your MCQA from
yeah.
Nigeria,
That's
and
really,
I'm
really
sure that even Indians, Pakistanis, we also have such access to.
positive. Yeah.
And so that's good. So it means that you can even start, whether it's residency, or whatever it is you want to do. While you are doing that, then you can also be preparing for exams, and it just makes the whole thing easier. And it's not until you move down to the country. So I
Yeah.
think the next question I really want to ask is, what are the steps involved? Yes, you've told us generally about the example. What's, like, just tell us, like, in a stepwise form, how is it going to be? If I start with this, then after this timeline, then I'm going to move to this other one, just to have a clear picture of what we are supposed to do.
Oh yeah, for sure. So first thing first, you have to know when you want to apply, and first of all, you have to know what pathway you want to follow when you come to Canada. So not everybody has to go through the residency pathway, which is the CARMS, which was what I did.
I
If you
think
already
that's
have
like the very popular one.
that's popular.
Yes.
Yeah. If you already have like some strong level of independent practice back in your home country for like let's say 3, 4, 5 years, and you have done core rotations in like psychiatry, internal medicine, emergency medicine, family medicine, or you've even started residency, but you've not completed and you've done like 2 years, right? You can consider the alternative pathway, which is a practice ready assessment pathway,
Mhm.
where IMGs that feel like they don't want to repeat residency can just do that. They just assess you for about 3 to 6 months, and if you think you're strong enough, you would start practicing as a full, family physician. And so you don't have to do the CARMS process for that, but the clause for that is that they might send you to a rural community to practice, but you know you'll be good just be there for a few months, for a few years, and then you can easily relocate when you want. There's also an MLP IMG for Manitoba. So if you want to go to Manitoba, there's an MLP IMG pathway where they do like a 1 year training for you and then transition you in. So you don't only have to apply to CARMS. That's what I'm trying to say. So know what you want to apply to, and then have your timeline based on that. So for people like me that want to do their residency, because I didn't do any residency in Nigeria,
Mhm.
even though I practiced for a while, but I still felt like I needed a residency. I would advise that, let's say you want to apply against 2026, right?
Mhm.
CARMS process. You should have written all your exams by the September of that year, of the year you want to apply for residency. So that's my
Mhm.
advice. So let's say your
Yes,
land
so it means that by September of this year, those who want to apply for next year should have
next year.
written all their exams.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
my advice, right? So I landed in like let's say June of 2022. I couldn't write in November of that year because I had some family issues, so I had to write the upper year. But I knew that I was working towards September of the upper year, right?
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
wrote my first exam in April, which is the QE1 exam. It was the Medical Council of Canada qualifying examination one, just in case people are wondering. And that's an MCQ based exam. You can write that in April, and then by September, I was able to write my NACOSKI, right? And then from
Yeah.
started preparing for my CAMS application. And then you should know also that you're going to write some mini exams when you're trying to apply for CAMS. It's usually
Mm.
just situational judgment test exams. It's called like the FM Pro C, which is if you're applying to family medicine specialty, you have to do that. It's about $58. And then if you're going to write a CASPA, some schools require CASPA when you're applying for residency, so you have to write it. It's about $120. And then if you're a resident of Abata, there's a special pathway process that you must do through the IMGP. Unfortunately, if you're going to apply this year and you've not done it, you cannot do it this year again, probably next year, because they require that you must prove that you have been a resident of Abata from December of that year to May of that year, and
Oh,
also
so they don't want you to come from another province to
Abada does not
Alberta. That's
Abada does not accept other provinces.
wow.
Just
Wow.
people in Abada. So that's why people that land in Abada, I advise a lot of doctors to land in Abada. You have an upper edge because you also have seats in Abada and you can apply to every other province. However, other
Mhm.
people living in other provinces cannot apply to your province. So you have an upper edge. Right.
Okay.
So I landed in Abada, right? And so you have to consider that. And then by May, you should have done the application for that. So they have a special MMI exam that you usually need to do, and you do that in November. Then BC also has their own. It's called a BC CAP, British Columbia, and then they also do their own exam in November. So everything after your major exams, you do like a couple of exams from September to November, right?
Mm.
And then you'll be submitting your residency application by the end of November,
Mm.
right, of that year, and then you wait for interviews. So interviews usually come around end of December, January, right?
Mm.
And then by January you do your interviews, and then March day comes in March. That's for the first iteration. So there are two cycle. After the first iteration, second iteration starts, and then the second March day comes in April. So that's how the comes time. So I would just advise your timeline should be I've written all my major exams at least by September.
Okay. So for each of these exams, the MCCKW one, the NAC, um, how often do they write it in a year? Just for people to know how to plan themselves around it.
Yeah, sure. So the NCCQE one is written 4 times a year. So there's
Okay.
the February batch. There's the I think it's the March April or April May batch, and then there's the September August September batch, and then there's the October November batch. Right. So that's 4 times a year. Um, and then for the Nakoski is twice a year. So there's the May batch, and then there's the September batch. So try to put yourself in between in those dates. Give yourself time. If you write your MCCQE one in September in April, so from April to September is a lot of time to be able to prepare for NACOSKI, especially
Okay.
because you now have the background knowledge of MCCQE one. So you just transfer that into your NACOSKI preparation, and you're good to go.
Okay. Um, so thank you so much for that information. Now in terms of cost, how much does it cost to do these exams? Because I know that that is something that a lot of people want to know about before they even start the process. So
Yeah.
I think how much does it cost, to sit for all of these exams and get to a point where you can say, okay, I think at this point I shouldn't struggle in terms of fund
Yeah.
anymore.
Okay. So first of all, I like to advise people not to think about the costs before you start. Because once you start trying to calculate everything, you will not start.
Mm,
Just this is expensive,
mm,
right? Take the leap of faith, start small, small. And to be honest, if I look back in hindsight, I really don't know where all the money came from because I was
wow.
very when I started, to be very honest. So, but eventually, money just kept coming. Money, information started coming, information, and then eventually, I was just like, oh, I've already paid everything. So, but yeah, to go to your question, the cost for MCCQE one is at that time I paid 13,000, sorry, $1,300, but now is $1,500, right?
That's Canadian dollars, right?
And yeah, this is Canadian dollars, which is lesser
Okay.
than by the US dollars. And then for the NAC OSCE right now costs about 3,320 Canadian dollars, right? And the family FM Pro C costs about 58 Canadian dollars. The
Wow.
Caspa costs about 120 Canadian dollars.
Hmm.
The MMI, they'll probably ask you to pay about $200 for that. BC
Wow.
Cap will probably ask you to pay about $200 for that. Application for the interview and for CARM, sorry, application. depends on how many schools you're going to apply to. Initially you pay $300 something, then each school you add is about $50. So eventually
Wow.
you spend about $900 or 1,000 based on how many specialty, how many schools you're applying to. So it's a lot
Wow.
of spending for sure. And these are things I remember. But you also have to write English tests again.
Just
You,
summarizing all the things you have said now, we have already passed like $5K. So
yeah. Well,
ah
like, the good news is that there is financial aid
wow.
for professionals, right? Which a
Okay.
lot of people are not privy to. Um, you can get up to $15,000 in loan
Mm,
for professional exams from a microfinance background, Windmill, right? So I took that loan and I quit my job. Maybe I just got that money. I quit my job sharply. I
mm,
just paid my rent in advance and I paid for my exams in advance and I just sat down and read. Also, there are some provinces that actually reimburse your, exam fees. So
mm,
Saskatchewan, for example, would pay you back for your exam fees for the first attempt alone, not all your exam fees, but the first one.
mm,
So,
mm,
they might, so all those things just cause a lot of relief for certain people. Because I find that one of the
mm.
problems that people have is trying to now chase the career, chase the bag, sorry, for to be able to pay for their career, and eventually
Yeah.
it causes a strain, right? And eventually they're not
Mm,
able to achieve any of that, any of them. So
yeah.
I
And
rather than
it's going to
go,
be easy for you to get distracted,
it'll be very
especially when
distracting.
you now start making like some cool money. You get
Yeah,
it's just
it
going to
can
be
get very
you just become more and more lazy.
can get
You
very
know, to
comfortable. That's a small dollar. So this is not the time
yeah.
to start small dollars.
Yeah.
It was my mentor that advised me to quit my job. To be very honest, because it took me a while to get that job, and I felt very attached to it because I was like, this one I'm now seeing money. Will I see another job again after I quit this job? But when I immediately I was done my exam, the second job even was better than the first job. So don't worry about how the
Mm.
next job will come. Quit, sit down, read, collect the loan, read. As Nigerians, we don't like busy, right?
Yeah.
We don't like credit, but
It's not
you
even
have to.
possible. When you are moving to the West, you must throw that mentality away. You get. I remember
Possible.
initially when I also got to the UK, I'm like, I don't want to owe anybody. I beg, what's my money cannot afford, I'm not buying.
Yeah,
Only later for me, we now realize that what are you saying? You don't want to get anything on credit. You don't
yeah,
want to know. You're not going to be able to do anything serious in the country in terms of investment because
yeah.
all of those things they work on credit. So eventually, I just became cool with it. That okay,
Mm,
let's just borrow, but let's just be sensible with the credits. You get,
yeah,
yeah.
yes.
So
You
thank you so much for the information.
sure.
Then yes, we've talked about the exam. So in terms of prepping for the exams, like materials and stuff like that, how do we have access to materials to help prepare for the exams? Or how did you go about preparing for the exams?
Yeah, I think preparation for the exams is also very relative and subjective to your foundation, how you think your level of knowledge is at the time of when you're trying to start preparing for the exam. So, I had to weigh my knowledge, and I discovered that I needed more foundation in like pathophysiology and things like that. And so I went to UWorld, Step 2 CK. A lot of people use UWorld actually, but the problem with UWorld is it does not really depict the Canadian exam,
Yeah.
right? It's usually very cumbersome. So some people find it tiring, right? But it gave me a very strong foundation because we had a very detailed, explanations. And yeah, I finished the word actually, step two
Mm,
CK. And then I also used Toronto Notes. So Toronto Notes here is our Bible.
mm,
Everybody must read Toronto Notes. You don't have to read it word for word, word for. Some people say they do, but it's cumbersome. So, but I would advise that you make sure you read specific specialties that definitely that would definitely come out, like family medicine, psychiatry, pediatrics, ethics, geriatrics, and a few others I can't remember right now, and mostly when you've read those specialties, every other thing are more for references. So I use Toronto know more for references. So let's say I'm going through like a question bank and I don't understand something. So I would then check my Toronto notes to see what the Canadian guideline, says, regarding what
about it.
Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the next question bank I used was HQ Bank. That one is a Canadian question bank and it kind of depicts what the exam would look like, more. And it's I liked how they worded their questions. There was no much pathophysiology and physiology. This is how the exam is. And so and then there are other master the boards here and there that I used, uh,
Yeah.
and then Canada Q Bank. All those things are just relative because there's a lot of materials. You just have to choose what works for you. And then
Okay.
you must know that ethics is very it's priority for this exam. So you must read ethics, and the website to read ethics in is the CMPA website. It's our protected body here, and they
Yeah.
have CMPA. They have group practices there, and they have models there that really help explain and dissect the Canadian ethics. So it's very important to read ethics there and read ethics in Toronto notes. And then you can also join study groups. So I joined AIMGA, which is the Alberta International Medical Association. Um, Everybody from every province can join. You don't have to be in Alberta to join,
Yeah.
but you have to pay like a yearly fee of $50, which is minor to what the service that they actually provide, because they helped me prepare for my MCCQE1, they helped me prepare for my NACOSKI, they did mocks for my MMI interviews, they did mock for my interviews itself, they helped me with my resumes, they helped me with my personal letter. So they have extensive help, right, for you. And even if you go, God forbid, you don't match that cycle, they'll still help you the next cycle. So it's very
That's
good, good, good. Yeah, it's a very good
good. Yeah.
um, membership, it was an organization to be a member of. And then for me, I'm a Nigerian, so we had like a Nigerian doctors pathway that we had
Mm.
alumni that had already matched, or people that have
Mm.
gone through processes or written some exams and are just there to help other people. And so I found them to be very resourceful as well for even everything, the same thing that IMGA offers, the Nigerian doctor pathway offers, but
Mm.
mostly open to Nigerians. So I think other African communities also have their mini groups, which I'm not very aware of. Even the Indians have their own and stuff like that. So you can just be on the lookout for that.
Mm.
And yeah, that was for my MCCQE1. For NACOSKI, it's mostly practice, practice, practice. So NACOSKI is an OSCE based exam. If you know
Mm.
what that is, you're going through different stations, right? So we have
Mm.
about 10 to 12 stations, and you have like Canadian, ethics there, presentations, clinical presentations. You have to do history, physical examination, counseling sometimes, and yeah, they're just basically assessing for your communication, interpersonal skills, your clinical knowledge, and things like that. And I use Narkowski Guide, Basil, Edmonton Manual. I use step three. Um, and you're not just reading those books, you're just getting questions from there to practice with your groups, right? You
Mm.
have to have like a small group of like 3 to 4 people where you guys are doing back to back every day practicing. And
Yeah.
the Nigerian Doctors Pathway also met for Nakoski, and also helped in Nakoski. So, yeah.
Mm. Now, like somebody who wants to write from their own country, how can they access these materials?
Yeah, these materials are easily dispersed on WhatsApp. Depends. So like the Toronto notes can easily be sent through WhatsApp. The Nakoski questions can be sent through WhatsApp. But when it comes to the question banks, it's best to subscribe. So you have to pay. So like a UWord Step 2 CK, you gotta go to their website, select how many months you want to subscribe to, and you have to pay for it. Same thing with
Mm.
HQ Bank, right? It's best to just look for it and pay for it. But the NACOS, like the Nigerian Doctors Party, has a Telegram group that has like a lot of resources there. That they posted even from way back like 2017, 2018. So a lot of resources. So there's a lot of materials. It's now you that will now choose which one works for you. You
Yeah.
understand? Yeah.
But do you have to be in Canada to be on these platforms like the Nigerian Doctors Telegram group, or how do you get to join them?
Yeah, I joined them from Nigeria when I was in Nigeria.
Okay, so you just randomly search on Telegram or what
Someone recommended me. So someone told me that she was on it, and then she recommended my name to the group
group?
admin, and then they added me, and then from there they added me to the Telegram group. So yeah, somebody has to recommend you, anyways, right?
Oh,
Or
wow.
you
Yeah.
can search for them. You can search for them on Telegram and say Nigerian Doctors Pathway, and add request to add to join or something. I guess.
Nigerian Doctors Pathway. Is that
Yeah,
what it's called?
yeah, Nigerian Doctors Pathway.
Okay.
Uh,
Um. So, but is there like maybe a Facebook group or? WhatsApp or any other group that people might be. I think for WhatsApp, to somebody has to add you to the
Yeah, it's
group.
WhatsApp. So it's
But I
WhatsApp
think
and
for like
Telegram.
Facebook, it's easier to join like Facebook groups. Do they have anything like that?
I've never really checked for them on Facebook. I think they're more
Mm.
active on WhatsApp and Telegram. But for AIMGA, if you want to join AIMGA, you can just join. You go to their website and just join.
IMGA is in Nigerian Doctors in Abeta or something, right?
The Alberta International Medical Graduate Association is a Canadian
Oh,
organization run in
so
Alberta.
one can join. They have like a website, right?
Yeah, they have a website. You can
Yeah,
just
so
join.
I think that can be a starting place for anyone who wants to go. Then from there, you can be added to any other groups that you
Yeah,
might be interested in.
sure.
Yeah. So you said something about your mentor. So how did your mentor come into the picture? Because for someone like me, coming to the UK, there was nothing like mentor in the process. It was just asking guys that have gone ahead of me,
Mm.
like, oh, how did you do it, how did you get around, it's just basic stuff, but I wouldn't call them mentor.
Yeah,
So how did that come into the picture, and why was it like important for your journey?
absolutely. So personally, I was actually the one seeking. So I was seeking for a mentor to guide,
Okay.
a professional mentor, and because especially because I hadn't heard any like success stories, right? So I needed someone to say, "This is how to do it. You can do it. Just show me the way, guide me, pull me by the rope." And so I was going on. I went on LinkedIn. I opened a LinkedIn account, and I was just searching for success story. I was so desperate to find just one person that says I have done it, right?
Yeah.
Then I found this man that I just posted, and that's the reason why I like to talk about my success, because I don't know, I know it's inspiring somebody out there to also pursue their journey.
Yeah.
I got inspired from just a post on LinkedIn. I was like, he just posted that he had gotten his licensure of Medical Council of Canada, right? And I was so inspired by that. This is a Nigerian, so this is possible. And
Mm-hmm.
I went further to investigate him, and he had done a podcast. And I listened something
Wow.
like this, and I listened to it, and I listened, and it was like it's possible and things like that. And so I was in Nigeria at that time, so I just reached out to him via LinkedIn, and I just told him that I'm inspired by his journey, and I'm also willing to embark on that journey as well, and I would be grateful if he's able to show me the way, right? I even offered to pay him. That's how desperate I was.
Oh.
But he wasn't willing to accept money, and he was just, I think he was just taken in by how how humble I was and things like that. And then he was like, okay, whenever I come to Canada, I should let him know. And so when I landed in Canada, I definitely reached out to him, and then he came with his family. He brought food for me. Just in fact, yeah, he
Wow.
just took me in, right? And in fact, he introduced me to his own mentor, who was also a doctor that had already practicing for like 5 or 6 years, right? So
Yeah.
that was just like a opening ground, and it just helped me know the exams to take, how to
Yeah.
exams, and helped me just network. So
Yeah.
I think that you should always have like find someone that has gone through it, and to pull you the road. In Canada, though, it's not like the US where networking is the main thing that might get you in, because in the
Mm.
US you need someone inside to talk on your behalf. In Canada, it's not
Mm.
like that.
Wow, really? So
Yeah,
it's not just
networking
about
is a big
passing
deal.
your exams.
Oh, networking is a big deal in the US. Yeah, networking is
Wow.
a big deal in the US. It is not like a big deal here in Canada, but for things like observerships, because he showed me doctors that I could do observerships with and things like that. So just for things to boost your resume, you know, networking is good in Canada. Yeah, so in that regard, I think everybody should have a mentor, like a professional mentor. You should have a mentor for different things. Your professional mentor might not necessarily be your spiritual mentor or your financial
Mm.
mentor, but you have your
Mm-hmm.
professional mentor for sure.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I get it. That's actually a good one. Yeah, and I also feel like the mentor thing will also give you like ginger, because you feel like, okay, I have some people like, that are
Yeah,
just there to support me, and it will
sure.
probably take away like the initial pressure.
Yeah,
So I think I've actually asked most of your questions. However, you said something about it, we like an IMG doesn't necessarily have to take the CAMS pathway. But
yeah.
I don't know if you could just, I know you talked about the non-CAMS pathway, but I'm just like, can you just say a little bit more about it? I know you already mentioned that if you have maybe up to like a few years of residency training, even if you have not completed your residency in your home country, you can
Yeah.
actually be considered for the practice ready pathway, right? If
Mhm.
you have the years of experience and you have the skills to actually work independently, then it's actually like a route you can consider.
Mhm.
Then, or maybe if you have also practiced in your country, maybe you have become like a consultant or anything like that, it's also something you can explore too. Then you also said and I also think that now when you talk about years of experience, I guess maybe somebody who has practiced like a chronic MO, not like chronic like that, but somebody who has done MO job for a while, can they also apply for this practice ready pathway if like maybe they have rotated through like major units,
Yeah.
ED, medicine, surgery, maybe not necessarily psychiatry,
Hmm.
but at least if they've gone through like the major specialties of medicine, is this something they can also consider?
Yeah, for sure. Like we have chronic MOs that have got through the practice ready assessment pathway for sure. You just need to be very um, confident in your skills, right?
Mm,
Because they're going to assess your skills, your procedural
yeah.
skills, your clinical knowledge, everything, and you must give them A1 for them to even allow you transition. So it's a very intense. That 3 months they're going to assess you is very intense, to be very honest. And
Mm,
people fail the assessment, so it's not just like
mm,
an easy. Some people, most people pass from what I've seen, but people can fail it. So you need to be very confident that you know what you're doing. You know your onions. You should also study about the Canadian guidelines and be sure that you can transition those skills into Canada here. And if you feel like you're very confident in
mm,
that, then for sure, give it a go, right?
mm,
But the practice already assessment is uh, we have different provinces have their own practice ready assessments. So Alberta, would require like you have done like a 2 year postgraduate training or
mm,
practice for like 24 months in like even if you have not finished the training, but at least 24 months of
mm,
family medicine, training containing 4 months of community medicine, emergency medicine, psychiatry, and all those things. Um, Also, there's the BC also has that their own practice ready assessment. Same thing, they might need 2 years of postgraduate training. Most of them prefer family medicine postgraduate training because they're going to
mm.
transition you into family medicine, right?
Yeah.
So it's usually tough for people that have done like proper specialties like OBGYN to come and say they want to come and do family medicine here. They might have some eyebrows for them,
Mm,
especially if you're coming from Nigeria or any other countries like African country or Pakistani, all those things.
mm.
And also, there's
But
the SPA, which is Saskatchewan PRA process. That one is a little more lenient. You don't need to have a 2 year postgraduate training. You can be a chronic MO that has
mm,
rotated. But you should have done at least 1 year of internship training. Uh,
okay.
Practice for at least like 3 years, independent practice. You can be like as an MO. And then, so if you have that qualification, make sure you have done psychiatry, emergency medicine rotations. And then, so you apply through them, they'll do their assessment for you, and they feel you're good, they transition you in. Uh,
Okay.
Ontario also has their own PRA pathway. But you need to know that for PRA pathway, you don't need NACOSKI for most of them.
Yeah, so it's just the
Just
MCCK one.
one, then you have to write the different exams. So they are on, they call it TDM exam. I've forgotten what it fully means. But it's kind of like a pharmacological based exams trying to know dosage of medications, what medication.
Oh, oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you do TDM. So once they find you eligible, they will tell you that you're eligible for TDM. Then you go do that exam, and once you pass it, then they will now draft you for interviews, right? So
Mm,
that's how that one works.
mm,
Um, you can also come in as a clinical, like an associate physician, right?
mm,
Some
mm,
people settle for associate physician roles, licensed ones. So, like in Alberta, we have licensed CPSA licensed associate physician role. I did that before I transitioned into residency. So, as with that, you're able to work under supervision, right? Um,
mm,
Doctor, right? So they recognize you as a doctor. Their pay is good, but not as high as an attending will get, but it's pretty good. And
mm,
you some people even every year the money keeps going up, so some people settle for that, get comfortable. Really, you feel like you're old and you don't want to start going through residency again. You can just
yeah.
because eventually when the higher you go, the more money you make, and it's pretty good money. There's also
Yes.
BC cap as well. Sorry, there's also BC associate physician role. However, they would require that you should have done at least 2 years of postgraduate training before you can get that one. They
Okay.
are better. You just need independent training practice for at least 6 months in the last 3 years.
Mm.
You need to write your academic, IELTS or other English tests like OET or CELPIP. You need to, have verified your transcripts, your medical diploma, um, and you need to have your resume. I think that's all you need. And your QA1, just need your QA1 for the.
Yes, I think you were also saying something about like having your PR is also very important for you to start residency. I think
Yeah,
you were saying something about that at the beginning. So it
yeah,
means that you must. So does it mean that you must have your PR before you can be permitted to start residency?
yeah. To be very honest, like you cannot practice without your PR, or you cannot apply to residency without
Okay.
PR or citizenship, right?
Okay.
And like for your
So
associate physician role, you can use a work permit, to get an associate physician role.
okay. So but how long on like on I know some people actually get PR from Nigeria, right?
Yeah, I got my PR
Yeah.
from.
Yes. So, but I also know that some people do not get PR from Nigeria, and right? Or
Yeah, it depends
does it
on.
mean that everyone who comes from Nigeria or from any other country always comes in with PR?
No, no, no. Some people come in with student visa. So some people come in with through like masters and eventually
Okay.
turn into PR, right? Some people come with visitors visa and then eventually look for work permits and eventually transition. So all those ones are longer pathways, right?
Okay. But if you're coming in as a skilled worker, you are
Yeah.
likely to get PR, right?
Yeah. So if you're applying as a skilled worker, yeah, for you to
Mm.
come in through that pathway as the express entry, you're coming in as a PR.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, so I just want to ask, is there any other consideration that you feel anyone who might be interested in this pathway should actually put in place, in terms of course, I know you have not experienced the UK pathway, but let's say just somebody who is considering coming to Canada, is there anything outside of these few things that we have talked about that you feel this person also needs to consider very well, if they are considering coming to Canada?
Yeah. So like first for sure, like if you're a family person, you have to consider family. Um, Consider how you're gonna pursue your career versus make money, because it's not the easiest, right? So you
Hmm.
have to put that in place and make sure that you understand that the first 2 years, it's going to be tough. And I would always advise that, you know, it's just my opinion, but I would advise that people don't work, for the first 6 months and get the exam
Hmm.
done before, trying to chase the bag. That'll be the first thing I'll consider. You can also consider, getting a loan. It really helps. Um,
Hmm.
Secondly, I would say you should consider the province that you decide to land in. Some people go make a mistake of landing in Ontario, although some people don't have a choice, right? Some people come with provincial nomination, and for provincial nomination, you must land in the province that nominates you. So if Ontario nominates you, then you cannot go and land in Alberta. You have to land in Ontario, right? The problem with Ontario is that Ontario doesn't have licensed clinical roles, right? It's just regular roles, and so it's not regulated. So sometimes the pay is not the best. Sometimes it's not recognized. When you put it on your resume. So
Hmm.
it's better you land in provinces that have licensed roles that are regulated, that are recognized, right? In Canada, and that will be recognized. That will make an impact on your resume. You're about to say something.
Uh, because I used to think that Ontario is like one of your major cities, right?
Yeah, it's a very good city, but it's not the best city for doctors to land in.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Especially as a new doctor. First of all, the cost of living is expensive. The cost of living is
Mm.
crazy high in Ontario. If you're somebody that's just trying to write your exams, you don't want to be paying $3,000 for it's one
Yeah,
month.
yeah.
When you can land in Calgary and be paying 1,400 for the same, one room, or $1,200, right? So those are just minor things to consider. But aside all those things, the major thing is that you cannot get licensed associate physician roles there in Ontario,
Mm.
and you don't have any advantage, being in Ontario. Because me in Alberta, I can also apply to an Ontario school when I'm applying for camps, right? And
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
still get interviews. But you in Ontario, you cannot apply to Alberta.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
no really any advantage of landing in Ontario personally.
Yeah.
All right. So it's just something to consider. Those are the things I weighed before deciding where I wanted to land. Except you have a provisional nomination for Ontario, then at that point you don't have any choice, right? So
Mhm. Yeah.
Saskatchewan is also a good province to land in, right? Although they don't
Mhm.
have licensed clinical roles, but they'll be able to reimburse your money back. Manitoba is a very good province to land in as well. They have licensed clinical assistant roles there. Nova Scotia is a good province to land in. To just try and consider provinces that are best for you as a doctor, rather than just considering the popping provinces, right? In quotes.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually very important because I think the medical practice in Canada is divided into provinces. And I
mhm.
think even the license and even registration is based on provinces from the few things I was able to get online. So
Yeah,
actually a lot more like each province regulates what
yeah,
happens in terms of their medical practice in
sure.
that area.
Yeah,
So at the end of the day, you are still like subject to whatever province. But I know
program.
for a lot of you, they may not have information about which province is good, which one is not good. For most people, it's just like okay, I heard Ontario is popular, Calgary is popular,
Yeah,
and they just go there without really having
sure.
all
Yeah.
of this information. But isn't it possible for you to actually move from one province to the another to another?
Yeah, you can. I just moved from Calgary. I just moved from Alberta to Saskatchewan now. So you can, but you always have to register with their own, um,
Oh,
their own college to practice. You cannot
okay.
use the Alberta college to practice in Saskatchewan. It won't work.
Yeah, yeah, I get
I had
it.
to forfeit
So
that.
yeah.
So
So
it's like
that
that.
means it means that you probably have to be tied to a province for. So it means that for now, for the years of your residency, you're going to be stuck in Saskatchewan,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
even afterwards, if you want to work there, you have to be there.
yeah. So the thing about like IMGs getting into residency here, especially in specific provinces, you have to be tied to a return of service. So return of service is the same amount of years that they train you for, you have to give back to that province, right? So if they train you for,
Oh wow,
you have to give back and at least work there for 2 years after you have practiced, after your training, right?
wow,
Yeah,
wow,
that's how it
wow.
works. So if they
So
train you
that
for 5 years for obstetrics and gynecology, like my wife now, she's doing her psychiatry residency in Saskatchewan.
yeah.
Well, she has to stay back for another 5 years after she's done.
What?
So means
Wow.
I'm tied down. Even if I finish my own,
Ah,
I
you are
can't go anywhere.
stuck.
But like I'm loving
Okay.
it. Like as long as I'm doing what I love, right? There's nothing like
Yeah.
that. You can always
Yeah.
travel, go out if you want, and come back. So, it's fine.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, that's the thing.
But the thing
Yes.
about Abada
Okay.
is Abada
So,
does not have that clause. Abada does not have return of service. So that's why Abada is.
oh, oh, okay.
The
So there are
reason
some
is
provinces that they don't mind. They can train you
yeah.
and you can go wherever you like to
But
practice.
Abata first of all, Abata only takes Abata residents, so they're not expecting you to want to go anywhere because you're already
Oh, okay.
Abata.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
get it. So that's
So
why I
you
guess
don't
they're
have any
more.
ties. But other provinces,
Yes.
because people come from different provinces, they feel like they might want to go back. See, my friend, you must stay here. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's actually cool anyway. That's good for them. So so I think thank you so much, Dr. Shibuzo, for coming. I'm sure that this should probably be like a general question and answer session. I'm sure that for people who are really considering this pathway, or maybe after watching the video, they might decide to, reach out for questions.
mhm.
And I hope it's okay for me to pass the questions across to you,
Yeah, sure.
so that you can, and then I'll get back to them on whatever response you want, because I know they might probably still have some other question, but this is just general questions just to give you an idea of what to have in mind when you think Canada. That it's actually not that difficult like the way people used to paint it. It's probably is better now, and it's somewhere you can consider. And I think I saw a video recently where somebody was saying that that there's a lot of opportunities for IMGs, that Canada still needs doctors.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is good. So instead of everybody just now that UK is no longer working because of the current issues on ground. There's a lot of issue right now in the UK.
Yeah.
So I think people should just start considering, and also because of the whole drama going on in the US, I'm sure people will probably want to start reconsidering their choices. But anyway, I think
By the way,
Canada is also
UK,
another place you can
by the way, like
consider.
it was a new like jurisdiction thing that happened in Abada. If you've already trained in the UK, done your
Mm-hmm.
Canada will just convert your certification to Canadian certification, and you don't need to write the MCQ exam. You don't need to do any assessment. They'll just convert it for you, and you can come and practice here. So that's
Yeah,
something.
but that's for GPs, right? I don't know how
Even
about other specialties.
specialties
I know
also have.
somebody who is trying to do that with psychiatry, but the person said the pathway is not clear that, and all of that.
But there's a new
So,
jurisdiction for Abada now. So I think some specific specialties are also there. I think psychiatry is also part of it, right? So
mm,
if you've done your training and you've completed your training, they'll just
yeah.
convert you to Canadian, but it's in Abada, just Abata, right?
Oh, wow.
Just
Wow.
release of jurisdictions, so the person can go look at it, the list of different jurisdictions that are eligible, and just see whether.
Yes, I missed the question. And that question is, like you said, people IMGs can come. I know that for a lot of countries like Ireland, Australia, there are some list of countries that, okay, if you have your primary medical qualification, or you did your residency training in this country, then you can have easy access. Do we have such in Canada, or like, are they open to everyone? Like, you can come from wherever you are, or are there some countries that can actually really come into Canada?
Yeah, I think like first of all, I think Canada loves like the UK trained, so UK can come in. South Africa, they like South African doctors as well, so they make it easier for them. Australia as well, although like I know some people that went to train in Australia but had to come back as an IMG, still write the QE1. But with the new jurisdiction thing in Abada, you don't have to do that for Abada. But for other provinces, you might still need to write at least QE1, right, to get in.
Okay.
Um, Even like the US, in some provinces you still have to do that, but it's Abada, I think they're also part of the jurisdictions that don't need to do that
Wow.
more. So
Wow. So that
yeah,
means a lot of doctors will probably be moving to Alberta. But
yeah,
anyway, if they've started, there's actually a high chance that some other provinces will
other
probably
provinces
want
as
to
well.
copy them when they see that it's working.
Yeah, correct.
I guess it's probably just the beginning. So I guess things will probably get better.
Yeah, correct.
So I think at this point I can round things up. There's already a lot. So in summary, it means that if you're an IMG doctor, whether you're just finishing your medical training, like I mean your undergraduate medical training, and you're considering, okay, I want to practice in a Western country. What options do I have? Now you know that Canada is an option for you. However, you need some years of experience. And anyway, it depends on whatever pathway you want to take. And for example, and also if you're maybe like an IMG and you've been practicing for some years in your home country, and you're like, you don't want to go through the whole residency pathway again, or maybe you have even done residency in your home country, or you have started residency in your home country, and you don't want to start all over again, then there's also something for you in Canada. So everything just depends on what exactly you want to do in terms of your career. Of course, based on what Dr. Chibuzo said, he also said that for you to go through the residency pathway, it also has its own pros and cons. And you probably, eventually, when you become like an attending, you probably be any much more than maybe some other person who did the PRP pathway. So I think thank you so much, Dr. Chibuzo. So I said my confession is that we actually did this session some days ago, but then unfortunately it got deleted. And
Yes.
I was so pissed. But at the same time, I just felt like, okay, I spoke to Dr. Chibuzo about it, and initially it felt like it might not work. But I'm so glad that it was able to, give me another chance. And I'm really excited I actually took that, give me that chance for us to have this session again. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you
I
so
hope
much.
hopefully save it
Thank
time.
you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no
And
worries.
so feel free, guys, if you have any further questions in terms of, Canada, for Canada opportunities for IMG doctors, feel free to actually drop them in the comment section. I'll get them across to him. And he's also on social media, so you can go on Instagram, you can look for Dr. Chi. He also talks about these things on his Instagram page. So, and you also get to see a little bit about his life on his
Uh,
Instagram. Yes, on his Instagram page too. So feel free to actually, you can check out his page, and I guess you might be able to, in case you want to reach him directly for more information. So this is going to be the end of this session, and thank you guys for watching. Thank you. I'm sorry, Sad and Neom. I Yes, you said you're a dietitian. Unfortunately, this is like more of a doctor's situation. I don't know so much about dietitians pathway in any country at all. But I think you can always check their websites. That could be a starting point for you. Check websites and get some information, and maybe go on Facebook, start with your search. I'm sure you eventually find somebody who has gone through that pathway. All right, so guys, take care everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Chibuzo, and have a very good night.
Take care. Good night.
Bye. Bye
Bye.
everyone.